Hello and welcome to Dharma. I'm your host, Kylie. Disclaimer, this podcast is not you, is verified, and I have referenced the author when quoted. Decipher, detour, dethrone, devour as many times and never forgive or apologize for something or someone's narration or declaration that is not in alignment with the amount of time that you've put forth. A narcissistic relationship can be a masterclass in your own potential, and you have the identity outside of these relationships. Stay away from the catch 22. Speaking your truth is always going to invalidate you. Narcissistic relationships render you unable to answer the simple question: how are you? Because you were never really allowed to have a feeling or experience outside of the person. And that is a sobering recognition. The end of their story in your life is acknowledging that so much of your perception, as Dr. Ramani explains, has been warped by the perspective of the narcissistic person, as if they made you and then took your vision with simply putting a distorted pair of eyeglasses, and now you need to learn to see yourself without them. Your future is hopeful. Having the narcissistic person is, as a point of reference, is consequential, because if you don't want to get targeted, you're going to have to learn how to see yourself without them. As you begin to radically accept that they won't change, don't in any way, shape, or form dive into the same routines and habitual ecosystems. Healing defines getting them out of the scene completely. Eventually, your narcissistic ecosystem ends up having less control over your story. Now, not every story ends or concludes with forgiveness. And embracing that is what makes an enduring abuse less taintful. I challenge myself often, and I have finally said, and I'm telling you this today, stay away from affirmations. I say this because it was a technique recommended in many different practices and therapy, meditation, and other exercises. For me, that wasn't working when I began to get further in my work of self. Affirmations was beginning to serve as a tool that I would use to distract myself, to wait on things that I knew were never going to happen, or happen in the favor of outcome to my life that I've worked hard to maintain from being in those narcissistic ecosystems. I have even had to talk with one therapist, and they told me that if I were to ever slow myself down again in a way that would hold me back, that I would always limit myself to a life designed from trauma, narcissistic people, relationships that had no place to last as long as they did, and a life that was scripted for me that I had outgrown. I went ahead and took that advice, and not with a grain of salt. I mean, literally. Graciously, however, I now tell myself that I'm more than enough, little strides. I know who I am now. Is it weird not sharing news with someone? No. If years had passed me by, maybe. However, no, it's not weird. I wonder less about what people think about me. There is challenge in finding yourself, and when you do return to anywhere that's remained unchanged, that is very difficult to do. The individuals and people that did not, or were never going to factor you into an equation are going to try to come back around into your life. And that's why it's important to take precaution into not allowing them to. They're not welcomed back. It doesn't matter the assumed position that they had in your life. You have to accept closure that is not going to always happen directly. So you have to understand that closure doesn't always happen the way that you assume or hoped that it would. You have to create a new framework for life post survival of these relationships. Fully releasing yourself from the narcissistic person's narrative entails coming into a retrograde of self forgiveness. Forgive yourself for not seeing it, for confusing empathy with enabling, and for making excuses. I've had to close things out on my own because my life story is about moving on and forward. Thank you so much for listening to Dharma. If you like, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.